I've talked a little about severity levels, sin, and how there are certainly things out there. There are sinful behaviors that are more damaging to people, to the people around those people, and to the society in general, and so on and so forth. And it's I guess it's an oversimplification to say it this way, but if you go back and look at the 10 Commandments, there are commandments covering, lying and cheating and stealing and, coveting and, those things. Those are the biggies, I guess, if you want to think of it that way. Gay is not mentioned in any way in the 10 Commandments. Still, it's a sin, and in God's eyes, sin is sin. It's just that simple. Anything that is a sinful behavior is a sin. And it doesn't matter if it's this or that or the other thing. To God, it's all the same. Again, there are things that people do that have a considerably more damaging impact on themselves and their families and their loved ones and those people around them and whatever, in society, in fact. So I don't want to make it out like, this is on the same level as this, at least as far as human standards are concerned. But the thing of it is that there are so many things that people should be looking at, as far as their behaviors. Christians, of course. It's like, I know so many. In fact, I know very few young people who haven't, engaged in some type of, sexual contact. Particularly if you're talking to young men. And I think in an earlier video, I mentioned a young man. He's a nice young man. He's a good-hearted kid. And but he made a point of mentioning. He may have mentioned it more than once that, his dad was a preacher, and his uncle was a preacher, and his brother was a preacher, and he'd grown up in church, and this and that and the other. And me being the hateful jerk that I am, and I'm a hateful jerk. I just kind of wanted to stick a needle in him and say, okay, you've admitted you've had premarital sex. Didn't they cover any of that in all the years that you were in church? Did your brother never mention it? Your father, your uncle? Did they never touch on those things about how you're supposed to be married and then have sex rather than have sex and then get married? And I don't think he really had an answer to it. And again, I was just being a jerk. I mean, I can't name, off the top of my head, I don't know that I can name any young people that married and then, well, yeah, no, actually I do. Sorry, back that up a minute. A couple, 2 or 3 that I know waited for that night, that wedding night, and and then took those next steps in the the marriage relationship. And I know some that are certainly planning it, and I think there's every chance that they will make it. Strong young man, he's an incredible fella in every way. And that's his plan, that's his goal, and I think he can do it. But we're all human, and we all make mistakes, and we're all, that's not to justify it, though. That's not to say, well, it's okay because everybody's going to, And that's the thing, because it's like, even, in Christian families, even in people who would call themselves Christian, a father has a son, he's dating this beautiful young lady, and, he might say, you're not supposed to, and it's that rib, that wink, 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 or whatever. And it's like, come on now, you're giving mixed signals. If it's really what the behavior that the young person should be, following, the abstinence, the virginity until that wedding night, or whatever. Don't make it out like it's a joke. Don't make it out like, well, everybody does. Well, okay, everybody does, but that doesn't make it right. And it's for most people, most Christians, and I use the quotes because there are so many people that call themselves Christian and then in no way act Christian, and I mean that. There's so few that really seem to have it going on, but I mean, I don't either, so I'm not trying to single out, the world and make myself separate, that I've got it right and nobody else does. And heavens, if there's anybody on the planet who's got it wrong consistently, that's me. And I'm not one of these, I'm the chief of sinners and say things like that and not mean it. I mean, I'm vile. And I'm not saying it for, it's what it is. But anyway, they make it out as if it's perfectly okay if, you have premarital sex, as long as you're a dude and you're having that premarital sex with a girl. That it's really kind of expected. The problem is with it's, two guys or two girls, or that somehow this behavior is only sinful if it's, contra to, the majority, the heterosexual majority, that, if you're doing that, if you're having premarital sex, that's fine. That's not a big deal because everybody does. So that's not a problem. But if you're in the minority, a term I've heard called a minority sin, not meaning ethnic minority. I'm not talking about, the color of a person's skin. I'm talking about if most people are doing it versus fewer people doing it. But it's like it's made out like it's fine to have premarital sex if it's if you're a young man and it happens to be a young lady that you're having this premarital sex with. But the long and short of it is, if it's outside of the bounds of marriage, then it's a sin. Period. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you want to, wink and nudge and your teenage boy and make it out like, hey, it's all right because, gosh, she is pretty and I know you can't help it. And, but see, we will screw up. We will inevitably, being human, we will always, always, always mess up. Christian, non-Christian, whatever. Hence the whole, Christians aren't perfect, just forgiven, which to me, it always seems like it's just an excuse to, a way of excusing bad behavior. That's what it always sounds like to me. It's just like, oh, well, I'm human. I can't help it. Oh, well, do what I want. No. But we will keep messing up. Hopefully, as time progresses and we develop a closer relationship with God, we'll see that those behaviors that affect that relationship are not behaviors that we really want. I mean, our physical, sexual being might just be constantly at war with our logical thinking, whatever parts of ourselves. But, and no, we'll never win that war. But quit making it out as if it's okay as long as it's a young man and a young woman if they have premarital sex, but that it's wrong if it's two young men or whatever. It's wrong, period. No, there's not a question here. Sex is designed to be between a man and a woman inside of a married relationship. Now, if that's not where you're at in your life, I'm not going to condemn you. I'm just going to say that I believe if you want a relationship with God, that's where you've got to be. You can be in that kind of a relationship, or you can be tempted by the things that you're tempted by, but not act on them. Obviously, easier said than done. But, that's the way life works. Anyway, so